Good evening, y'all, and welcome to Emmanuel's Cafe Caedmon, featuring my friend, Amy, you're not Emmanuel, my friend, Amy Waltz Reasonover. So glad you were here, so glad you put up with me, and can't wait to hear the show tonight.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. So my name's Amy Waltz Reasonover, and I'm a friend of Brad's. Also, I am thrilled to have Marilyn Shannon Myers in the audience tonight, who was my piano teacher when I was 13, and that's been a really long time ago. But we aren't going to talk about that. I'm thrilled to have her here tonight. So I have been playing the harp since I was 11, and I'm 46. So if any of you want to do the math, it's a really long time. Played the piano since I was 3, which is even longer. What a lot of you might not know is that I'm deaf. And you might wonder, how does that work? I've not always been deaf. And so I have memory of sound and perfect pitch. So as long as my harp is tuned well to my tuner, then I can sing the right pitches. So that's how that works. And we're gonna hope that it works. BD, before deafness, I was a harpist for a few symphonies around, and taught piano lessons and harp lessons and choir. And now I'm a full-time student, and I'm graduating in December with a degree in liberal arts. And it might be up to the church what happens next. So I'm very pleased to be with all of you this evening. So thank you. I want to start tonight with the Skyboat song. We're going to kind of be going from Scottish to Irish. Scottish is, wow, it takes me back home. I grew up with Scottish music, and my best friend's mom was Scottish, and so Scottish music kind of filled my life in early years. And it really takes me back to my childhood. I'm going to be playing tonight some of my favorites, and then we'll be moving on to Irish music. And I want to kind of give you guys some background before I start each of these. So I'm starting with something that a lot of you might know. It's called the Skyboat song. It's a kind of romanticized version of the aftermath of what were known as the Jacobite rebellions. That was a 17th and 18th century series of uprisings aimed at placing a Stuart, a Scottish king, back on the British throne. They were ultimately unsuccessful, and their prince, Prince Charles Edward Stuart III, Bonnie Prince Charlie, you might know him as, fled and was assisted to the Isle of Skye, disguised as Betty Burke, the serving maid to Flora MacDonald. So on the 27th of June, 1746, accompanied by a crew of 6 boatmen and 2 servants, Betty Burke and Flora sailed to the island of Skye, and they hid in a cottage. And from there, they sailed to another island and then to France. Charles and Flora would never meet again, but it said that when she died, she wrapped herself, she was wrapped in the bedsheet that Charlie slept in. So, speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, onward the sailors cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king, over the sea to sky. Many's the lad fought on that day, while the claymore could wield. When the night came, silently lay dead Uncle Odin's field. Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, on with the sailors cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king, over the sea to sky. Though the waves leap, soft shy sleep, ocean's a royal bed. Rocked in the deep, Flora will keep watch by a weary hand. Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, on with the sailors cry, they cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king, over the sea to sky. Over the sea to sky. So one thing you'll notice is that the Scots and the Irish, they love tragedy. A lot of these songs are going to be sad. They'll be about death. They'll be about a mourned love, or someone who's gone off to fight in France. Scots love to pull at our heartstrings, and so do the Irish. Lots of songs about war and love. This next one is no stranger to that. Has anyone here heard of the Massacre of Glencoe? One person. So the Massacre of Glencoe is both a song and a part of history. It recounts a shameful act perpetrated against Clan MacDonald of Glencoe on the 13th of February, 1692. On that day, 38 members of the MacDonald clan were massacred by troops at the behest of the Lord Advocate of Scotland, who was a senior legal officer. Many more would perish in its aftermath, including women and children. Although the Jacobite rebellions were done, they were no longer a serious threat. Unrest continued in the Highlands, and clan chiefs were warring about whether to give their allegiance to the new king of Great Britain. And the MacDonalds, it's alleged, had not yet done that. So they weren't the only ones who failed to meet this new king's deadline of allegiance, but they were made to be an example. And so under pressure from William, the Secretary of State, Lord Stair, decided to make an example of them to the other clans. And he sent the following orders with a contingency of the clan Campbell, who stayed with the MacDonalds overnight as guests under the unwritten laws of hospitality. The following is an excerpt from the original orders given to the MacDonalds, to the Campbells. You are hereby ordered to fall upon the rebels, the MacDonalds of Glencoe, and put all to the sword under 70. You are to have special care that the old fox and his sons do upon no account escape your hands. You are to secure all the avenues that none may escape. This is by the king's special command, for the good of the country, that these miscreants be cut off root and branch. See that this be put in execution without feud or favor, else you may expect to be treated as not true to the king's government, nor a man fit to carry the commission in the king's service, expecting you will not fail in the fulfilling hereof, as you love yourself. I subscribe these with my hand, the master of the stair.
And murdered the house o' MacDonald. They came in a blizzard, we offered them heat, a roof for their heads, dry shoes for their feet. We wined them and dined them, they ate of our meat, and they slept in the house o' MacDonald. Oh, cruel was the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave O'Donnell. And cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and murdered the house o' MacDonald. They came from Fort William with murder in mind. The Campbells had orders King William had signed, but all to the sword these words underlined, and leave none alive called MacDonald. Oh, cruel was the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave O'Donnell, and cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and murdered the house o' MacDonald. They came in the night while men were asleep, that band of Argyles, through snow soft and deep, like murdering foxes among helpless sheep. They slaughtered the house o' MacDonald. Oh, cruel was the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave O'Donnell. And cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and murdered the house o' MacDonald. Some died in their beds at the hands of the foe, some fled in the night and were lost in the snow. Some lived to accuse him who struck the first blow, but gone was the house o' MacDonald. Oh, cruel was the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave O'Donnell. And cruel was the foe that raped Glencoe and murdered the house o' MacDonald.
everyone in this room, or almost everyone in this room, will know the next one. John Purser, in his monumental work, Scotland's Music, says that Lalomand commemorates the Jacobite army's return from Derby in 1745. He suggests that the lyrics are younger than the tune, but no source seems to have definitive proof. Instead, attributing them to a Jacobite prisoner languishing in Carlisle prison, awaiting his fate. Instead of the Jacobite army moving through Carlisle right at the end of 1745, other explanations suggest that the prisoner was taken to Carlisle after the Jacobite defeat at Culloden. Whatever the truth is, we know that the high road, which one person will be taking, is the road of life, and the low road is the road of death, and we'll find our prisoner in Scotland before his friend, who is returning via the high road.
By on bonny banks and by on bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will ever want to be, on the bonny, bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. And you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. But me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. 'Twas there that we parted in yon shady glen, on the steep, steep side of our Lomond, where in purple hues the Highland hills we view, and the moon coming out in Loch Lomond. And you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. But me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. The wee birdies sing and the wildflowers spring, and in sunshine the waters are sleeping, but the broken-hearted can nae second spring again, though the woeful may cease frae the grieving. And you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. But me and my true love
Irish music. This next Shula rune is Irish Gaelic, and it translates to "Go My Love," or "Walk My Love." The piece is both in English and in Gaelic, in a style that's known as macaronic, like macaroni. It was characteristic during the 19th century when English was kind of becoming the mainstay in Ireland, and so we had people that spoke both Irish Gaelic and English. You still have that to some degree, but for the most part, English is the language. But during this time, we were in a time of transition, so music was also in a time of transition. To explain this piece, we have to go back in time to the second half of the 17th century. Again, to the Jacobite rebellions, when the Irish were sending over troops, and were also part of this rebellion. But for them, the goal was to be independent. So in this, we have a young woman whose love is seeking his fortune, and she's saying she would do anything that she had to give, she would give, so that this man could get his sword and his shield and what he needed to make a name for himself and make himself a hero. To the point of dyeing her petticoats red and doing things that women who dyed their petticoats red did. She would sell her spinning rod and her wheel to buy her love a sword of steel. So, Shularoon, go my love, go and make your fortune.
Dye them red and round the
So this time we're going forward in time an awful lot. We've spent some time in the Jacobite rebellions. We're going forward in time to the 20th century, the early part of the 20th century. In fact, 1916. The Foggy Dew is one of the most remarkable songs to have emerged from what's known as the Easter Rising, staged by Irish nationalists in 1916. The Irish had rebelled against British rule for centuries, but all such moves were suspended by the British at the outbreak of the First World War, leaving the Irish unsure as to whether they would ever achieve independence. More than 200,000 Irishmen went on to fight for Britain in the First World War. However, many Irish supported the war effort, but some did not. They thought, why are we off helping small countries to be free when we can't be? And they found the irony there. So a small group of these nationalists staged a rebellion at Easter time in 1916 that became known as the Easter Rising. The rebellion was quickly put down by the British Army, and many rebels were later executed. The Irish people, in general, thought that these rebels had gone too far, that this wasn't the time for it. Now, a lot of Ireland proudly flew the flag of war for the World War because they supported the war effort. But when the British decided to execute the protesters, Ireland and the Irish people thought that Britain had gone too far, and these men became martyrs very quickly. Far from acting as a warning to others, these heavy-handed tactics increased support for the nationalist cause among the Irish citizens. And like our Remember the Alamo, Irish rebel songs, which refer to the Easter Rising, are highly romanticized, but serve to keep the spirit of an independent Ireland alive. So this tells the story of that.
that small nations might be free. But their lonely graves are by Suva's waves on the fringe of the great North Sea. Oh, have they died by Pierce's side, or fought with Capricorn? Their names we will keep where the Fenians sleep, neath the shroud of the foggy dew. But the bravest fell, and the requiem bell rang mournfully and clear for those who died that Easter tide in the springing of the year. The world did gaze in deep amaze at those fearless men but few, who bore the fight on freedom's light, might shine through the foggy dew. Back through the glen I rode again, and my heart with grief was sore. For I parted there with valiant men, whom I never shall see no more. But to and fro in my dreams I go, and I kneel and pray for you. For slavery fled, oh glorious dead, when you fell in the foggy dew. I had to replace 2 strings when I got here this evening, so I'd like to take a brief interlude from what we're doing to play for you a piece that's important to me and maybe to my wife. When I was 16 and thinking about, maybe wanting to actually do this for my life, I started writing music. And, in the beginning, when you're writing music, your pieces are kind of simple, but I held on to this one piece and I loved it, and it was kind of part of me, and I called it Aspirations. I called it Aspirations. And I always knew that there was somebody that I loved who this was for, and I never could decide. And then on the night of my wife and my first date, I was playing for the Lake Charles Symphony, and I invited her to come with me. And we went out onto this
empty stage. Nobody was there yet. And I introduced her to my harp. And I said, "This is Sunshine." And that's her name. And I sat down and I played for her. And this was the piece that I played. And I realized then that it was meant for her. All those years, it was meant for her. And that was a song that we danced to at our wedding because, unbeknownst to me, she had been recording it while I played. And so she kept it on her phone, and when we got married, that's the piece that we danced to at our wedding. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to something I think all of you will know. Mystery surrounds the origins of the famous Irish ballad, Danny Boy. Some say it was a Celtic harp piece dating back to the 1600s, but we just don't know. And the song has come to symbolize the Irish diaspora and national pride. Interestingly, its author wasn't Irish at all, but English. And his sister-in-law, his Irish sister-in-law, sent him an old folk tune in hopes that he could set set words to it, and so he did. Perhaps because of this ambiguity, this tune has found a sort of universal lament among people. They all love it. We don't know who Danny is, and why he and the narrator will never see each other again, but it's kind of become universally loved. So.
the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses fallen. 'Tis you must go and I must hide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow. Oh, when the valley's hushed and white with snow. And I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But if he come and all the roses dying, and I am dead as I will be, go out and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me, and I shall hear the soft dew tread above me, and then my grave will richer, sweeter be. For you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I will sleep in peace till you come to me. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow. Oh, when the valley's hushed and white with snow. And I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow. Oh, when the valley's hushed and white with snow. And I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
Sorry about that. When you replace strings, they have to stretch. The strings are gut, so they, which sounds kind of gross, but there we go. Yeah. People ask what I do, and I run my fingers through cow guts, and I make it sound beautiful. That's guts. So I think I'd I'd like to end tonight with something that all of you should know, or most of you should know. I don't know if everybody. Be Thou My Vision is my favorite hymn. It's a traditional Christian hymn of Irish origin. The words are based on a Middle Irish poem that was translated in 1905 by Mary Elizabeth Bryn and made into a verse by Eleanor Hull in 1912. It reflects aspects of early Christian Ireland from 400 to 800 AD. This prayer belongs to a type known as Lorica, or prayer for protection. It makes reference to God as King of the Seven Heavens, or High King of Heaven. This description of a Christian God as a chieftain kind of harkens back to the idea of a clan, and is a traditional representation in Irish literature, medieval poetry, and sets God as the clan protector. Since 1919, it has commonly been sung to an Irish folk tune noted as Slán in church hymnals, and is one of the most popular hymns in the United Kingdom. And when my life is in turmoil, it is what I turn to. It is my very, very favorite hymn. for inviting me to come tonight and to share this with you. It has been a joy. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Loved it. And can't wait. For those of you joining, thank you so much, and glad you got to see the show. And next month, December 9th, we will be back with Cafe Caedmon with Joe Buchanan playing. And in the meantime, keep listening to music. And remember why we're here and why we're doing this, so that we can continue to bring music and celebrate music and modern day psalms and ancient psalms and hymns with one another here at Emmanuel Episcopal Church and beyond. Thank you.